Let's see, the time is officially 1:03, so we'll go ahead and get started. Just want to welcome everybody here today. This is one of a number of series in the series that we're doing with the Choroideremia Research Foundation. My name is Beth Foss, and I'm the Director of Operations here at the CRF, and I just welcome you to today's webinar, which is being recorded, and it is on guide dogs, how to choose a guide dog, what are the protocols and trying to make the decisions, all sorts of different things. I want to just first of all say thank you so much to our sponsors, which would be Allergan and Biogen, for sponsoring this webinar series. Lisa Derleth is our guest presenter today, our speaker, and Lisa is with Guiding Eyes, and she was all set to present to us when we had our conference all set in Rochester. So hopefully next time we'll be able to meet you next year in Rochester, keeping our fingers crossed that we'll be having our conference there next year. Just a couple housekeeping issues, folks. As I just said, maybe you heard, but the webinars typically are muted for our attendees. So of course we'll be taking questions and answers at the end. But one of my jobs is to be, as the host, is to screen any questions that you might have specifically to that particular slide deck. Lisa has a slide presentation she's going to be doing. So if you have something specific that you want right then and there, use that chat icon. I'll be sure to see it and present it to Lisa. Otherwise, we'll wait to the very end. And I think I'm looking at my little checklist here. I think we're all set. So we just want to thank you so much, Lisa, for being a part of our series. And this is a topic that's near and dear. My father has had a guide dog before, so they're incredible tools and friends. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Oh, let's see here. 1 second. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today to learn a little bit more about guide dogs and what they're all about. I am a guide dog mobility instructor at Guiding Eyes for the Blind. I've been working at Guiding Eyes for the Blind for 23 years as a field rep, or now what they're called guide dog mobility instructors. So I have a lot of information to share with you, and I look forward to the questions that you have later on, and we'll get started, okay? So what we will be discussing today, I have to give you a background about Guiding Eyes for the Blind. And we're going to talk about the benefits of having a guide dog and the challenges of having a guide dog. We're also going to talk about applying for a guide dog and what is needed to be accepted to our program, and the raising and training of a guide dog. Now, I have to preface this by saying the things I'm going to be sharing with you are for Guiding Eyes for the Blind, but it does apply to many of the schools throughout the country that do offer guide dogs for people. So some of the things will be similar, but yes, it is, this is particular to Guiding Eyes for the Blind. So our mission at Guiding Eyes is to provide guide dogs to people with vision loss, and we are passionate about connecting those exceptional dogs with individuals for greater independence. I am going to do a little bit of describing for those of you who might not be able to pick up on it, but of the photos that are on my slides. And here we have a woman with her yellow Labrador Retriever, probably walking around across the street in White Plains, New York, and she is accompanied with an instructor, and they both have big smiles on their face. Okay, a little bit about us. We're part of the International Guide Dog Federation, which establishes worldwide standards for breeding and training guide dogs. And we're also one of the founding organizations of the United States Council of Dog Guide Schools. And I suggest you keep that council in mind for looking up information about other guide dog schools. It's the U.S. Council of Dog Guide Schools. If you do Google guide dogs in the United States or guide dog associations or schools in the United States, you will most likely get a nice long list of guide dog schools in the US. So Guiding Eyes has graduated over 7,000 guide dog teams. And when I say teams, I mean the person plus their guide dog, because that's what you do. You work as a team. You'll hear me saying that often, teams, and that's what it refers to. We have about 1,000 active graduates at any given time. We place about 160 guide dogs annually. That's going to be a little different this year because of all the COVID situation that we're running into placing the dogs. I'll get a little bit more into that later, but we have thousands of volunteers who help out Guiding Eyes, all the way from puppy raisers to people who work in the offices. And we do have about 150 employees at Guiding Eyes, both working at 2 different facilities that we have. And I don't know if you know this, but it costs about $50,000 to breed, raise, and train, and then match a guide dog, as well as support the team throughout their lifetime together. So that's a big chunk of change for one team. We are a nonprofit organization, and all of our services are provided completely free. So where does all that money come from? We have spectacular donors that we've had through the years. And it also comes from people who leave money in their wills, foundation money, and we have a fantastic development department who raises those funds for us so we can do our job. Excuse me. Guiding Eyes was founded by a gentleman named Donald Kouth. In 1954, I have a couple of black and white photos here. One is with Donald, and who was later our director of training. His name was Jeff Locke. And then the picture on the right shows our first graduates, who were George and Ellsworth McKnight, who graduated in 1956. And they actually have boxers for guide dogs. We don't use boxers anymore. I'll talk about our breeds later. But back in the day, we were using anything that we could find to try to come up with a good breed of dog for guide dogs. Today we use Labradors and German Shepherds. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Excuse me while I lose my voice. Our headquarters and training school, I told you there's 2 facilities. The training school and the headquarters is located in Yorktown Heights, New York. It's a suburb north of, about an hour north of New York City, but it's very much a suburb. We actually take a lot of our teams down to White Plains, which is halfway between Yorktown Heights and also New York City. And that's more of a city atmosphere, more of a medium-sized city. I'd probably say, you know, about this size, maybe a little smaller than Pittsburgh. Yeah, a little bit smaller than Pittsburgh, but it has all the traffic that you need, et cetera, to practice with. So we have a picture of our house, which was the founding house for Guiding Eyes. We've had many, many expansions through the years. And then we also have on the right a photo of our walking path, which was generously donated by various Lions clubs throughout the country. And then that path has all kinds of places for the teams to go out on and go sit and, you know, enjoy what's around their surroundings. So it's a nice place to be when you're away from home. We also have our Canine Development Center that's in Patterson, New York, which is about 35 minutes northwest of Yorktown. We on purpose keep the puppies, and this is the place where the puppies are born and brought into the world. And they also get their foundations of up to 8 weeks old before they get placed with a puppy raiser. In this photo on the left, we have a yellow Labrador puppy, adorable, and there's some hanging toys around for it to play with and get accustomed to. It also has like a mini cloth vest on, which has them get used to their body being handled, because they will have a vest on or a harness on when they get older as a guide dog. And on the right is our newest facility, which is part of our Canine Development Center. About our breeding colony, it is composed of 92% Labradors and 8% German Shepherds. We obviously have had a lot more success with the Labradors than the German Shepherds. Labradors are a very laid back dog. They're very easy to it's very easy for them to get used to new things. So anything from going to a raiser, to a different raiser, to a trainer, to going and living in the kennel for 5 months while they're being trained as the guide dog. They're very easygoing in that respect. German Shepherds are a little bit different. They're more of a one-person dog, but they're very loyal, and both of them do very excellent work as far as the breed is concerned. We have the third oldest colony of Labradors within the United States guide dog schools. And it's comprised of dogs with really the highest genetic potential for health and temperament. And that's what we're aiming at for the perfect guide dog. Of course, there's no perfect guide dog, but we try to get there as closely as we can. We have over 100 breeder dogs active at any one time. Right now, it's not the case because we cannot bring the dogs in to train at this point because of the whole COVID situation. Not so much because of the dogs, but because we can't have a lot of people working at the same time being located an hour outside of New York City. But that'll change in time once we get a vaccine, right? Okay. So we breed our own dogs for many reasons, but mainly it's because we can very easily track the lineage and genetic data that make up successful guide dogs. Everything from thunder phobia to temperament is very much generated by the perfect dogs that are genetically looked at. So it's very important that we can do that. We've done things like practically eliminate dogs with allergies in our colony of dogs, and we actually, that's a genetic thing, and you know, so it's very important that we can do that. Hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia is nearly non-existent. If we do find it, then those dogs aren't going to make it as guide dogs. We get to control the exposures of the important developmental stages that the dogs go through. That's very critical. You don't want to put on too much on a dog at once. And so we're able to keep control of that all the way from when they're born to when they're with the puppy raiser. So it's great that we can do that. We have to meet the demand of over 160 guide dog teams a year, and we have to adapt the traits as our clients' needs change. So for example, back about 10 or 15 years ago, we found that we were getting an aging population, and the aging population in general required a slower dog. It also required a easier to handle dog, what we call the softer dogs. So in doing that, that was all great and good at the time, but now we're a little short on the faster dogs, the tougher dogs that people look for and that need. So there's a balance there, and we're working on that balance. It is recovering now. So what I'm saying is a faster dog is harder to come by than a slower dog. We do have our own veterinary department at both facilities, fully staffed with several veterinarians and vet technicians. And we use these facilities for our puppies, also for the dogs in training, and any graduate guide dog teams that can get to our facility. So let's get down to it. Why do people choose a guide dog? Well, our dogs do increase confidence, independence, and lead to new possibilities. Our canes are very important, of course, and you really shouldn't ever give up the cane, but we found that, you know, having a guide dog pushes the boundaries a little bit more than what a cane has, and we hear that over and over from our graduate teams. So the benefits of having a guide dog is they are obstacle avoiders. And they stop at elevation changes, something that a cane cannot do as easily. And when I say obstacles, you know, there could be anything on a sidewalk, on a country road, a log to go around, anything. And what the guide dogs have been trained to do is go around those obstacles so you are not hitting the obstacle. They also have the ability to adjust to traffic at a moment's notice. So if the handler says to their guide dog forward to cross the street, and there happens to come a car around the corner, right hand turn on red, with a hybrid engine that the person can't hear, then the dog is going to react to that very quickly, whether it's speeding up to go past that car that's oncoming, or backing up, or just stopping while the car goes around you. Something that people over and over tell us have saved their lives, really. And so it's great to know that you have that. They do help you locate familiar locations without probing like you do with a cane. For example, if you get to a corner and you know there's a light pole that's 10 feet away, you know how they sometimes put them far away where you can't reach them. Never could figure that one out. But anyway, you can train your dog to go to that pole, and it's something that we call landmarking, where it's a back chaining of working with the dog, and we use the use of clickers and food rewards. So it helps get the dog motivated to go to that pole, and there's a whole series of ways you do that, but it's something that is easily done without having to probe with your cane. Dogs definitely break barriers with the public. And as you'll see on our next slide, that can be a good thing and it can be a not so good thing. But in general, we hear people say, you know, I don't have people come up to me with my cane as often as they do with a guide dog. And that's because, you know, so many people love dogs. I think that's part of it. But it also gets their attention a little more easily too, having a furried friend next to your side. They do help correct a natural veer, and in general, they allow us to walk faster than you would with the cane. And of course, they are great companions. So in considering being a guide dog user, you really have to think about these things I'm going to mention next. You have to understand that there will be an additional expense of having a guide dog. We help out tremendously. I'll go over that a little bit later, but we help out an awful lot with the expense of having a guide dog, but there's still, I would say, it costs about $75, $80 a month just to maintain your guide dog. And that's mostly with providing a good food, and also with things that come up with veterinary costs. Again, I'll go over how we can help with that too at Guiding Eyes. You do have to consider their care is going to be 24/7, and you know, so it's not unlike a child. You really have to know what they're doing at all times, and you have to make sure they're relieved at least 5 to 7 times a day, potty breaks, and you really have to think about what their needs are. So the other thing too is that, you know, dogs are going to shed, and a lot of people don't know it, but Labrador retrievers do shed a lot. Not as much as the shepherds, but still a lot of shedding goes on. And they can trap dirt in your home. You know, with my dog, what I have to do is wipe off his feet every time it comes in the house, especially when it's muddy outside. And they will put you in contact with the public more. So the reverse side of getting more attention is that you will have people, oh, how lovely is your guide dog? I have a Labrador retriever, my cousin has a Labrador retriever. And as fun as that is to hear people say that, when you hear it about 25 times a day, it can get really annoying. And some people just do not have the tolerance for that. Other people actually like it. So, you know, you have to consider that too. You do have to have a backup plan for your guide dog as far as care is concerned, and that would be if you were ill and you were unable to take care of your dog, or if your dog isn't feeling well and you have to get to the office, but you have to have somebody taking your dog out and caring for it while you're gone. So always good to have a backup plan for the dog. It shouldn't be forgotten that guide dogs make mistakes too. And they're going to make them often, especially in the beginning. It takes about 6 months to even a year for a guide dog team to really gel and feel comfortable together. So you got to think about that. That's 6 months to a year of having to correct mistakes that they may be making or errors that they made. And that's all about what the guide dog school is about, and the 21 days of coming to Guiding Eyes. That's changed a little bit too, post-COVID or during COVID. But yeah, you have to be on top of them and know that that's going to happen and how to handle it so the dog isn't getting intimidated by you. There has to be a balance of playtime and work time. When that harness comes off when you get home, you know, that's time for them to be a dog. And that means maybe your dog likes to play fetch or tug of war. They're going to need that because it's a release for them. And you have to keep in mind that the training never stops with having a guide dog. You're learning every day in new situations how to handle your dog. Trying new routes is going to be new. So, you know, that training just never stops after you get a guide dog. In the picture here, we have a woman who has her guide dog. At her feet, she's in a chair at her office, you know, and she has a computer in front of her, and they're both like gazing at each other. So transitioning from a cane to a guide dog, what is that all about? Basically, when you're transitioning from a cane to a guide dog, you're going to be making more lateral movements. So as your dog's walking around obstacles, you have to be able to sidestep with that dog as it makes its way forward as well. There is a loss of tactile information, and for some people it's hard to let that go. We try to get an idea during the home interview, which I'll talk about, but we try to get an idea of if someone's going to be okay with doing that. Also, you'll be checking surfaces not with your cane anymore, but with your feet instead. So when you get to a curb, instead of trying to find that curb with probing with your cane, you're going to be reaching out to see if your dog got you to the edge of that curb. So it's just different. Cane usage is self-propelled, of course. You're walking at your pace, while a guide dog is actually pulling you because they're guiding you. And there's about 2 to 3 pounds of pressure through the harness handle. When people come into training, they're actually quite surprised how sore they are at first when they start beginning to use their guide dog, because just like any sport, you know, you're going to have different muscles that are used at first, and it'll take a little while for your body to adjust. We do try to match you with the proper speed, though, and pull of a guide dog, and we'll talk about that in the matching process. It is important that you maintain the proper body alignment with a guide dog, but it is with a cane too. So like when you get to a corner, you have to be aware of your traffic sounds and know that you're lined up properly for crossing that street. Same thing with a guide dog as with a cane. So in applying for a guide dog at Guiding Eyes, you have to be a minimum of 16 years old, and we have no upper age limit. But, you know, we want to make sure that people at the younger age are mature for their age, that they're very self-sufficient because they are going to be the ones taking care of the dog. And it's usually go-getter students, you know, whether they're high school or college students that we're looking for. Sometimes people have the assumption, whatever age you're at, that, you know, this dog is going to get me out and about like it hasn't before. But you do have to be a capable cane traveler with very good orientation and mobility skills that you acquired with the help of an orientation mobility instructor. So that's very important. It's very important that you have daily routes that you travel. We're usually looking for 2 to 3 routes minimum that you can travel independently and feel confident on. We're really looking for people who have confidence now with traveling with their cane, because they're the ones that are going to be giving that confidence to the dog because they know their area so well. If you're very hesitant, the dog's going to be hesitant. And very likely, if your orientation isn't good, you're going to end up somewhere that you didn't intend. So that's why it's super important to have good orientation mobility skills using a cane. You have to be able to provide proper care for the dog in terms of cost, and also you have to have a safe home. And the work environments where the dog is going to be traveling also have to be safe. So if you live in a neighborhood that has lots of loose dogs, you know, that are a nuisance, it might not be the right thing to have a guide dog for you. So in talking about applying for a guide dog, you have to complete an application, and you can do that at guidingeyes.org, or you can call our 800 number, 1-800-942-0149, and they can send you a printed application if you'd like, or a Braille application. You do have to have references from a certified orientation mobility trainer or instructor, and you do have to have a medical report filled out by a physician. We also need an eye report by ophthalmologist explaining your eye condition. So our responsibility at Guiding Eyes starts with the home interview, where you would have a guide dog mobility instructor come out to your home and evaluate what you're about, what your home area is about, and what your travels are like. After the home interview, you would be with all the materials in that you need to get in and the home interview. It would go before an admissions committee, and the admissions committee is comprised of senior instructors and also our director of training. And they sit in and, you know, look at each person individually, and then collectively they decide if this person would benefit from a guide dog. And then we will make recommendations for specific programs that I'll tell you about a little bit here in a couple minutes. A little bit more about the home interview. So it takes about 2 to 3 hours to do a home interview. The questionnaire portion we are now doing over the phone with people instead of in person, just so we're minimizing the actual face-to-face contact. That takes about an hour, and we'll ask you all kinds of questions about where you travel, what your home is like, what your home area is in. Of course, we're going to see that when we get there eventually. And then we will come out, if we think that it sounds like your routes are what we would require of you to have in order to receive a guide dog, then we'll come out to your home area, and we're practicing all kinds of social distancing techniques at this time with that. Hand sanitizer, masks, we're even getting new headpieces so we don't have to be so close to someone. But we're going to be looking, you know, is your home safe for a guide dog? And in general, if it's safe for a child, then it's safe for a guide dog, and even more so, a little bit more, it has to be safe for a guide dog, because they'll pick things off the floor and eat them like no toddler will. And of course, you're hoping to get the guide dog that doesn't do that, but they're all dogs, they're all teenagers when you get them. So, you know, all of them have different quirks about them, and we just want to make sure that overall the area is really safe. Same thing about the travel environment that I mentioned before. We are actually going to videotape portions of your route, so we can send that information. That's with your cane. If someone happens to have a guide dog already, we'll do it with the guide dog. And a portion may be done under blindfold. If you have some residual vision yet, we want to get an idea, how much residual vision does this person really rely on? Or how good are their skills are with their cane? And although we know that you won't be traveling with a blindfold on, this gives us an idea how much you actually can do without your vision. So, you know, it's a good indicator to us how much you're using of your remaining vision. And then, so we send that video back to Guiding Eyes, and that helps evaluate whether you should be admitted to Guiding Eyes. Also, we do a Juno walk, and we have a photo here of someone, instructor, who's on the person's left side with a harness on her right side, and then the person is next to the harness on the other side of the harness, and they're actually learning how to walk with a harness. So this is a way to teach people how to walk with a harness with the proper body language and also hand signals. We're giving a lot of information that people have never heard before, and we're looking to see how well you're absorbing that information. And then we're looking to see how well you follow that harness handle once we've given the instruction. So some people, you know, if they put a blindfold on, we do sometimes do this with a portion with a blindfold, they put on and they're holding back so bad because of fear, it's not going to work with a guide dog, because you have to step out with the guide dog and you have to have that confidence of trusting the dog. Of course, that does come over time, but if you can trust your cane and you have confidence using your cane, we believe there's a good chance you're going to be able to be successful with a guide dog too. As an interviewer, we will tell you if we recommend you or what might hold you back according to the admissions committee, just so there isn't any surprises. And then we'll recommend different training programs to you that we do have. And we talked a little bit about this, but you know, how do we assess the low vision applicant? Well, it's not easy. And we want to ask ourselves, you know, how much vision is too much before it starts to interfere with the work of the guide dog? Now, the guide dog has been trained to work with somebody that's totally blind. There's a greater chance they'll work with someone that does have some residual vision, because that's how our population is. But, you know, is that person really going to be able to give that trust to a dog because they may have a lot of vision? You know, it's like, are they going to be working around the pole and walking around the pole because they see it, or are they going to allow the dog to pull them around that pole? So we're looking at the need in that case of how much a person really needs a guide dog. If they travel very often with friends and family, they may not, you know, if they have a lot of vision. And if you do have some residual vision, we may ask you to try the blindfold both in the cane walk and the Juno walk, like I mentioned, just so we can get an idea if you can really rely on that harness and get a feel what it's like to walk out with the harness. And you know, our applicants must be able to demonstrate that they can follow the harness during a Juno walk. So that's, you know, there's a lot more to it than that. And it's not just that we're looking for. We're looking at many things, many factors with an applicant. So yes, we have plenty of people who have a good amount of residual vision, but we get the feeling that they're going to be able to put that trust in the dog. Another thing to mention about this is that some people want to apply for a dog before they lose their vision totally. And while we understand this, it's actually, you know, we really have to consider, is this person going to be able to do that? Like, as if the person is doing a lot of work for the dog because they do have some residual vision and they really haven't put the trust in the dog, as that person loses vision, if it happens to be in the time that they have that particular guide dog, you know, are they going to be able to trust that dog once that time comes? And if we don't feel that they're going to put the trust in that dog, then, you know, once they do lose their vision, the dog is going to be like, I've been on vacation for X number of years while you were losing your vision because, you know, you were doing the work for me. You were pulling me around obstacles. So, you know, we have to be very careful about that. And of course, we don't always know the answer to what how this person's going to handle the residual vision with a guide dog, but we try to make a good guess. So the home interview enables to learn more about your personality and your skill level, and of course your environment. It gives us the ability to videotape, so we can send that information back to Guiding Eyes so they can match you with a better dog for you. We do welcome orientation mobility professionals to join us at the home interview as long as you welcome them. So you may, if you decide to do this and you're going through the process at Guiding Eyes, we would encourage you to bring your orientation mobility person on board so we can all be on the same page. You know, if I see something that may need to work with somebody, I'll mention that, and then the orientation mobility person knows that firsthand. So the admissions decision takes about 2 to 6 weeks after all the materials are in and the home interview's been done. And then you will either get a yes, and arrangements will be made for you to come into class. Sometimes we don't have an answer for you right away, but you're on the list then of who's going to be coming into class eventually. And then if you do get a denial, you'll get an explanation with some suggestions too of how maybe you can improve. And just in saying that too, I want to mention that just because you've had one home interview does not mean it's the end of the process. If we deny you a guide dog the first time, we're happy to come back out. You know, if you've worked on some of these skills, usually it's with an orientation mobility person, and then we'll be able to come out and assess again, same thing. So it's not a done deal if you've done your application once. And we do care about every detail that goes into the perfect match. That is really what it is all about. It is art. It's a little bit of science, but it is, you know, us trying to see the whole person, what their capabilities are, and what they need as far as their lifestyle, as far as their pace, which we actually measure with a GPS, both with the person and the guide dog in training, and you know, how their handling skills are. Are they quick to react to a situation with the leash? How do they handle the dog when they come in those situations? And then we're looking at your personality too. So like a dog who has an effervescent personality may not be so good with an effervescent person. Might just be too much effervescence. So, you know, we're looking to make it a match that'll work as a team. If we have a really laid back person and, you know, maybe they do want a more exuberant dog, but, you know, we may put them with a more laid back dog too. Something that won't get them frazzled as much. So getting into our training programs, we do have a 21-day course at our Yorktown campus and dormitories. At the dormitories, everyone has their own rooms, and that has refrigerators, it has, you know, a sound system hook up to Wi-Fi, TV. We do have housekeeping every day if you'd like it, laundry services. So we generally have 12 classes per year. Those got shut down when March hit. In fact, we had to send a class home, almost done. But right now, during the pandemic, we are not having any classes. We are going to be doing home trainings only. And while they are much more expensive to do, it really is essential. That's how we conduct business right now. So we'll talk about home training in a bit, which is probably more relevant right now. Classes are wonderful when we can have them. There's 8 to 12 students in every class. They come from all over the country and Canada. And we have about 2 to 3 instructors and a class supervisor facilitate that class. So it's a nice student to instructor ratio. And I think you'll find that if you're checking other guide dog schools, that is true. Most of our training takes place in White Plains, as I mentioned before. And all the expenses are paid for, including room, meals, and the transportation to and from the guide dog school from wherever you are. So that is nice to know. You just have to bring money for incidentals. And really that's it. And if you want to buy souvenirs or also some goodies for your dogs, then, you know, that would be a good time to bring a little extra cash. But other than that, Guiding Eyes pays for the entire cost. And I'm losing my voice, I apologize. So I mentioned you get your own private room. In the photos here, we show a desk with a TV, also a filing cabinet, or it's actually a nightstand, And then we have, comfortable single beds, a refrigerator. You have your own bathroom, like I mentioned. So it's nice. It's plain. I'll be honest with you, but it's a nice. It's fairly roomy actually. What you have for a room. We used to have 2 people per room until about 10, 12 years ago, and that could be actually kind of interesting after about 5 days, because you find out real quick whether you like your roommate or not, and now you don't have to worry. Our training programs, oh, by the way, I want to mention about the class training at Guiding Eyes. It's really great for first timers, the class training, because you get to be with people that are in the same boat as you. And all kinds of people that you probably would never meet otherwise, and it's good to have the camaraderie of going through the same thing with those people. Sometimes you'll get new students and people who've had guide dogs before going through the process again, and they can act as mentors. So and you're away from the daily grind of your life, so you're concentrating on your guide dog. And that's why we say for first-time people, we really do recommend the class training. Some people continue to do the class training as well, the second or more time around. Home training it takes place right in the person's home area. We have an instructor come out and stay in a hotel, and we pay for the cost of all that, of course. It's a 10-day course for previous guide dog users, and then a 15-day course for the first-time guide dog user. Sometimes we'll give a day break in there, but we try to make it so we have continuous training, and you'll get 2 trips a day, one in the morning, usually one in the afternoon, but we can be super flexible with the person's schedule based on work commitments or child commitments, whatever they may have. So it's very tailored to the person, and if people are getting a home training right now, kudos to them, because I think it'll be hard to go back to class training after you've had home training. I love doing home training, so that's why I'm speaking from myself. We bring the dog out to the student's home. Obviously, you start with the dog on day 1. The dog's going to be living with you and will stay with you. First day is real laid back, just getting to know the dog and, feeding them, taking them out to go to the bathroom. And actually, the instructor doesn't even stay there very long for that the first day. But after that, we progress with short routes and then longer routes adding on. We have to be really careful not to do too much, mainly for the dog, because they're in a brand new area.
Lisa, we have a question real quick from the audience. We have, is there the 21-day training cycle that you have back at the site? Is that 7 days a week, or is there a break days that you can have as well?
Yes. So you do have a day off on Sundays. So that is usually 2 Sundays, because the class comes in on Monday, and then you have a break on Sunday. You still have to go through all the, taking care of your dog, obviously, having them stay in the room. But, you have that downtime in between too. And you always have the downtime in the evenings. But you're still on a schedule really from 6 a.m. in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, when is the final park time. So yes, we try to keep that continuous as well, but with that break that the dog and you need. And basically we dedicate that Sunday to, you can't leave the campus, but you can have playtime with your dog, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, I hope I answered your question. Okay. Let me know if I have not answered your question.
No, I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll keep going. Okay,
sure. So for the first time, I mentioned Guide Dog User is a 15-day course. That's a pretty long time, but it's also shorter than the 21 days. And you'll find it really beneficial, because the dog is actually learning to do exactly what you're going to need it to do on a day-to-day basis. Okay, don't tell anybody that I said So many positive things about home training. Okay, and we do have a combo, which is called the action training. And that 10 days takes place in the residential program at Guiding Eyes for the Blind with the class. And then 3 to 5 days happen at home with a different, usually a different instructor that comes to your home area just to get you started on the routes that you have in your area so you feel comfortable with that little bit of extra help. So yeah, that's, and it, we do that with one instructor. I'm sorry, there's 2 students who work with one instructor when they're in the class portion. So there will be 2 action students who are working with one particular instructor. Usually it's for people who are experienced guide dog users and have really good traveling skills that we've noticed with their past guide dog. So we have that. Obviously, again, this can't take place right now during COVID times. It's strictly home trainings right now. Somebody asking a question? I don't know. Okay. Something's flashing, but I don't know.
You know, that's actually us, Lisa. I'll ask it right now because we're kind of getting closer to the end of our hour,
Yeah.
and I don't want to rush you at all. But the same gentleman had a quick question about is Hawaii is considered part of the U.S., is it not?
Yes, it is. And so is Alaska, Puerto Rico. We have 5 graduates right now in Hawaii. So yeah, we service Hawaii. We love going to Hawaii.
I bet.
I have a story about that, but I'm not going to get into it. I was supposed to be going to Hawaii as the rep, and then somebody new came in that lives in Colorado. So instructor Lisa, New York, doesn't get to go there. But anyway, it's nice to see that we have that many graduates in Hawaii right now. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next. Okay, and then we also have, which is really quite exclusive to Guiding Eyes, we have a specialized training program that was founded by Ted Zubricki in the early 90s. And this was meant for a program for people who may have additional disabilities or challenges. So that person would work with a specialized training instructor along with maybe one other student in the class if you're doing the class training, but it could also be home-based training too, depending on what we feel would be best for this person or what their commitments are at home that they have to stay with. But we service people for that program who may be deaf. They may use American Sign Language in the palm, or they do have some residual vision where they can read lips. We also service people who may have cerebral palsy or other gait abnormalities. It may be somebody who doesn't have one arm, so they're not going to use their guide dog, which is traditionally used with the 2 hands, one holding onto the harness, one for using the leash. So these dogs are trained for way longer time than our actual dogs, and they're trained specifically to the person who's accepted to that program. It also could be somebody who's maybe aged and they're slower than, you know, in how fast they walk than the average student in class, although they can be a very big range of paces. So yeah, that's what our specialized training is about. It's a very popular program, and it is quite a long wait. It's about 2-year wait to get in that program, probably a little bit longer now with the whole COVID situation. And our running guide program is something that is really quite new. We began with it in 2015. So we're the first guide dog school to begin with this program, and it's meant for people who do want to have a guide dog for the regular use that you would use a guide dog for on their daily travels, but also for people who may be runners. I mean, you know, they have to already have an established running routine. And very often people may have a little bit of residual vision that they can get by with running, or they have a sighted partner. And this essentially replaces that sighted partner. So Yeah, so you know, it's a fantastic way for people to get out with their guide dog on trails that are safe, or routes that are safe, that don't have a lot of challenges to them, are what we call low complexity. And we do have a specialized harness that we do use in this picture of a runner with a guide dog that does not have the special harness. It was before we developed it, but it makes the running easier, you know, than the regular harness does. And it's become very popular. We have quite the list. I would have never thought in a million years, and believe me, there was plenty of us older trainers that were like, really? You're going to trust a dog running and avoiding obstacles and stopping for elevation changes? We couldn't believe it could be done safely. I admit I was one of those people, but really it's quite amazing to watch. And if I come out to watch somebody doing it, then I get on my bike because I don't run. So it is all about the match, and we're continuously assessing what the student needs to do in their training, and we're looking at after training too, you know, whether it's in a person's home area or not. We want to look and make sure that all the teams are good. So we'll come out every year and a half to 2 years to make sure that you're working together safely. And we want to make sure you're working effectively with your dog too. Is the dog sniffing and getting distracted more than it's worth? And not to mention the safety aspect of that. That's what we're looking for. We want to make sure that everybody's safe. Now I have a little bit more about the guide dog training process, and I just want to ask Beth if you think we have enough time for this.
You know, we're thinking alike. I think we're going to need to bypass this because I think most people, and we did say it was an hour long, and I just certainly want to make sure people do have enough questions and answers.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you one real quickly. We had, your timing was well because we had 3 questions about the running and exercise. So here I have just 2 questions real quickly. One is the use of mass transit included in the training? And then another question is if there is an allergy sufferer in the family, are there labradoodles or any reduced allergen breeds that some people could have?
Okay, so let me start with the second question first. We do not have dogs who are allergen free. So that is, you know, that's something to think about. If the allergy cannot be controlled by medication and it's very uncomfortable for a family member, we really wouldn't recommend you having a guide dog because their dander, especially the Labradors, well, and the German Shepherds, it really could be a problem, you know, in the family. So we do not offer Labradoodles. I do know Leader Dogs does offer poodles, I believe, and the combination of the Labradoodle or Golden Doodle. So that is something to keep in mind. I don't know of other schools. Guide Dog Foundation, I think, does use varieties that are more allergen free. What was the first question then again, Beth?
About using mass transit in training?
Oh, yes. Yes, we do. Yes. So something I didn't mention about the class training, and we would certainly do this in somebody's home area if they were to use mass transit, we do have you get on buses. We have an optional trip to Manhattan for half the day that you would be one-on-one with an instructor, and you will do everything from escalators, elevators, buses. We're going to actually have you take a train right into Grand Central Station, either to or from, depending on which part of the day that you are going to be working with your instructor. But yes, we do cover that. And you do learn how to ride in cars and all that right at the school. Any other questions that I can, answer?
No, there's another question about, please, integrating a guide dog with a family pet, whether it be a cat or another dog.
Right. So, you know, that can be challenging, and you have to consider, does my critter get along well with other dogs, outside of guide dogs? Does my cat, is it comfortable? Do you feel it would be comfortable being with a dog? And that can be hard to answer unless they've been exposed to them. But in general, our Labradors and even the German Shepherds, we don't want them to have behavior problems, so we would never put a dog out there that was aggressive on purpose. And usually it takes a matter of just acclimating them little by little, first having them meet on the property, when you first come home with your guide dog, or we bring you one, and outside on the property, and then even keeping them separated for a while, maybe but with a baby gate, just so they can get to know each other. Very important to maintain control of your guide dog, especially in the beginning. They'll be on leash with you all the time, or else what we give you, like a leash, a tie down that you can attach to furniture. And, even gates, like I mentioned, for room. So you're going to give them freedom little by little, so it isn't like a big free for all when you come home with your dog. But in general, they will get along. Sometimes you don't know. I actually have a demo dog that I have. She's a guide dog. I don't use a guide dog, but I use it for my training purposes and to see if how they react to having a guide dog. And I take her out on home interviews with me. And very often I can get a sense of how their dog's going to react with a guide dog. So that's, and it's important, because then you have to make a choice. Are you, if the dog doesn't seem to get along with other dogs, are you willing to give up this dog? Because that probably would be what it would take if they don't acclimate fairly soon to each other. Yeah.
How long typically, Lisa, are dogs used, and when do they need to retire?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so we usually tell people you really should be thinking about retiring your dog around 10 years old, 11 max. So yeah, you don't want to keep them working right up to when they're, ready to pass away. That would just be awful. If you think about having to work yourself until you're 80 or 90, you wouldn't want to do that to yourself, and it may not be physically possible. So you do have to think in advance of when you're going to retire the dog. If there's 6 month, year wait, you have to really think about that and think, okay, I have to get my application in. And the new dog can live with the old one. Usually they get along fine. Takes a little bit of time for the one who was working to get used to not working, but you can do that in the process over time by giving them less and less duties, as far as working.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Any other
I don't think we have any other questions. I'm looking right now. If anybody does, now is the time to pop them in, send them on over. I think, Lisa, if you stop sharing your screen,
okay,
that would be good. That'll get back to the two of us.
Okay.
And there we are. So if there's any other questions, let me just double check. I don't think so. Now, if anybody has any questions, do you want to give us your contact information? And of course, we are going to have this on our website. The recording will be there, as well as information. I'm not sure about the PowerPoint presentation, but obviously you'll be able to see it in the recording. So Lisa, tell us one more time how to get in touch with you.
Sure. So it's at guidingeyes.org on the internet. It's all one word, guidingeyes.org. And also you can call us at our 1-800 number, which is 1-800-942-0149. And thank you so much to you, Kathy, and everyone for joining us today. And thanks so much for the nice comments too.
Well, we're so excited to probably meet you in person next year. You and your companions that will be there. So again, we just thank everyone again, and we want to thank our hosts and our sponsors, Allergan and Biogen. And thanks so much for your time, Lisa. This was really great. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, and have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.